Welcome to Nailed It, a podcast featuring business tips from industry leaders, presented by Clever Punch. Here's your host, Jade Flogerzi.
Today we have joining us Marine Shumann, co-founder of Brighton Solar Company. Marine's journey into renewable energy began in the hospitality industry, where she managed sustainable development projects for over 400 hotels. She also has an extensive background in marketing, and now with a passion for transforming perceptions about solar energy, Marine's mission is to make solar accessible to all. At Brighton Solar, she oversees day-to-day operations and business strategy, ensuring customers are empowered through education. Marine believes that a well-informed customer is the key to success, and she's dedicated to making the transition to solar both rewarding and sustainable. So let's hear from Marine about her vision for the future of renewables and the importance of educating consumers in the solar space. Welcome to the show, Marine.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited.
I am too. So what year was Brighton Solar established?
So we started working on Brighten in 2014, but we ran about a 6 months market research. So officially we launched Brighten in 2015, early 2015.
Okay. And the founders are you, your husband, Jeremy, another co-founder, Gauthier, and he started a company in France called Synergetic in 2008, which has become a very successful solar installer in France. So then Gauthier is vacationing in Santa Barbara. Are the three of you together at that point or no?
Yeah, so it's all interesting how it all started. So my husband, Jeremy, and I moved to Santa Barbara about 11 years ago, and we moved for work. We had been working post our master's degree, working, pretty uneventful corporate lives until we decided, okay, well, let's move to Santa Barbara, to California. We were both living in France at the time or before. And one time my cousin Gauthier, who was in the sustainable industry, had a pretty successful solar company. He visits us, and we're, on the Riviera looking down beautiful Spanish style roofs. And we all start talking about renewables and how we can barely see any solar panels on the roofs. And it pretty much all started there because it was indeed pretty interesting, right? Solar is, by that time, about 10 years ago, it was already a pretty well-known technology, nothing new there. In France, I don't know if you've been to France, but there's lots of solar implemented there. And Santa Barbara already at that time was known to be a pretty progressive, earthy, living kind of place. We all know about the oil spill back in 1969 and how the Earth Day movement started here. So all in all, just got very interested. Like it seemed to be like a pretty big paradox. How is it that there's no more solar there? So yeah, Jeremy and I kind of took the bait. That's something that my cousin knows how to do. It just, kind of poked the bear a little bit. And we, at that time, both Jeremy and I knew that we wanted to do something different, professionally speaking. We're both pretty driven individuals, and yeah, we were like, okay, we do want to have a bigger impact. We were looking into starting something where we could drive a project according to our values, our vision, and it seemed like a perfect opportunity. So we did that. We started looking into solar, the local market. How is it that there's no more solar implemented in Santa Barbara? And the rest is history. Brighton was born.
And so you saw that opportunity. What were those first few years like when you started?
I think that, this is where my business background really came in. My first thoughts were, we have to do our due diligence. Oftentimes when a product is not really implemented or adopted, there's a good reason. There might just be no market for it. So I didn't just want to jump, full in without doing my due diligence. And so my first 6 months were really about interviewing as many people as I could. So well, by people, I mean homeowners, whether they had solar or didn't have solar, wanted to understand why. I remember spending so much time Googling local architects and builders and then tracking them down for an interview, people from the city, the county, energy departments. I just wanted to know everything about it. Obviously, I studied our competition or potential competition at the time. What are those companies? What do they look like? What is their offering? And then I tried to really connect all the dots together. And at some point, I just was really looking for, was there a reason why, again, solar was not more developed? Was there a need for new entrants? Could I come up with a value proposition that was going to resonate more with the local community? And once I felt like, okay, we have something that we have cards to play. This is when we decided to create Brighten, and those first few years were really very humble and humbling.
What did you find in that 6 month, that like discovery process when you were interviewing and trying to connect the dots? Like what were your findings?
There were a few things, very interesting things. The biggest one, I think, was there was so many misconceptions about solar. It was a time when the market was really dominated by big national companies. We've all seen them, big brands at the time, Solar City, Longevity, something. They were there, they were present everywhere. They had pretty big sales tactics where they were everywhere. You could find them at Costco, Home Depot, and they were really using poor sales tactics, poor ethics. We talked to a lot of people who were like, well, I thought it was going to be good for me, but I found out that, I have this big escalator, so I'm supposed to pay less, but I'm actually paying more electricity than if I had, stayed without solar. Some didn't even realize that they would not even own their system because they had signed into a solar lease. I talked also to a lot of realtors who hated solar at the time because sometimes, when you're in escrow, it was hard to get rid of that lease. So we found that education was really key. We had to tell people what solar was about, that it was not an hoax. It was not, if it sounds too good to be true, it's not good. Like you have to do your research. It's a great product. You can save a lot of money. You offset, you reduce your carbon footprint. So that's great. But you have to understand what you're getting into. So that was a big one. Another one was about the look and feel of solar. We talked a lot to architects, and it was at that time, it seemed to them that solar was difficult to blend in, on the roofs. And especially, we have this beautiful, uniform clay tile roof feeling in Santa Barbara, and they didn't want to jeopardize that. So I had to come and show them photos of, what we were doing on the French Riviera, not the American one, but the French Riviera, and show them how cool looking, beautifully integrated solar could look like. And so I had a few of those like, moments, when they're like, oh, well, I could totally buy into that. And so this is actually how we got our first projects. We were working with architects and on plans and trying to blend solar, dimension solar the best way so that it would look, beautiful. And so, those first few years were amazing because this is really where we were able to tailor Brighten and blend our values, our vision company-wise, but also really feel like, okay, we are meeting needs there. We're not just adding a new need. We're really solving an issue. And it was really humbling. And I don't think that anyone really saw us coming. We were kind of the underdogs, just doing our little thing. And this is really when we signed bigger projects. Like, I remember one that received some pretty nice PR that was for Starbucks. It was the first Starbucks equipped with solar. So that was fun. And Deckers, we put solar in Deckers headquarters in Santa Barbara and Goleta. And this was at the time one of the biggest solar rooftops.
Nice. In those early days, I know that you talked about how important your mission is, your core values with the company when you started. In those early days, you mentioned different priorities that clients had or architects had, aesthetics being one of them, confusion about the logistics was one of them. Did people care about the product back then, like the how it was made and those kind of issues behind it, or was there a lot of education needed there?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for asking it. I think it was part of the education that needed to happen and still is to this day. I think that people were confused, and I would have been too before looking into it myself. I didn't know there were so many different products. Some are definitely better made than others, especially now, when it comes to battery, because we do install solar, but we install a lot of battery storage, and not all products are made equal. So we had to educate people a lot about, the product that they want to have on their roof, they want to invest on, whether it is, the warranty, the workmanship, the quality of the product, but also the ethics that go behind the product. And this is very dear to me because part of our values is integrity. And we do want to do solar the right way. This is part of solar done differently. You don't want to create another problem, add on to the environmental mess that is already happening right now, even if it costs you business. And I think this is something that I'm very proud of at Brighten, is that we are never compromising on our values. And a best way to exemplify that is with the equipment that we're installing. And so, especially with batteries, when they first came on the market, they had been there before, but really what put them on the map was Elon Musk and the Tesla Powerwall back in 2016, 2017. All of a sudden, everyone is calling us and they want a battery, and they don't want a battery. They want the Tesla Powerwall. And, again, back to basics for us. Okay, let's go back to researching the different products. Do we feel comfortable installing this one versus this other one? And we found the truth about battery storage, how they're made, most of them at the time were made of cobalt, and that cobalt poses a real problem to us.
What is cobalt? Or what are the issues around it? Yeah.
Yeah, cobalt is, 70% of it is mined in the Republic of the Congo under very unethical practices, no safety gears provided to the workers, lots of child labor, poor wages, you name it. We don't want anything. We don't want to participate in that. It's also a finite resource, right? So when we talk about the problem that is caused by fossil fuels and the fact that they're finite and all the ripple effects, we don't want to, start adopting another finite resource that also causes issues not only for the environment, but also for the populations that are extracting those resources. So this was a great experience, actually, because it really tested, again, our company, having to say no to so many people and sitting on so much business and losing so much business when our competitors were thriving by absorbing, all this battery projects. But I think that it really made us strong. And, actually it's funny because now all the manufacturers are moving away from cobalt and finally adopting this one chemistry that we have been working all along. So not only we have more experience working with it, but it feels good for me, it feels good to know that, oh, okay, we made the right choice.
Yeah, of course. Your tagline, like you said, is solar done differently. And that is such a great example that really stands up to what that means and what that encompasses with your mission. What are some other examples that you feel like really encompass that tagline for you and your company?
Yeah. So again, solar done differently. It's a tagline, but that ties to our values. And we have 6 really strong values, and we made them simple because we want them to be very felt and understood by everyone around us, starting with our employees. So our values are integrity, relationships, excellence, impact, innovation, and safety. And everything that we do is all about that. So I talked a little bit about integrity in the sense that, okay, when we choose a product versus another, we want to feel that, they are the right things to do. Right? They're the right equipment. We talked about cobalt on the ethical part of it. It also causes safety issues. So there's no way I'm going to install this at my mother's home. I'm not going to install it at my client's home. This is just easy, But another one is relationship. Relationship, okay, it's being customer centric, doing what's right for the customer. It goes with education, making sure that the information that we're providing is unbiased and they get it. We don't sign them into something that they don't understand. But it also goes with how we treat our employees, right? We want our employees to feel like we care as much for them as we care for our clients. And so it's about providing very strong benefits. So health, vision, dental, disability, retirement, you name it. We very early, as soon as we got our first employee, we're like, okay, we don't want them to feel like we don't care for them. Maybe it's the French part of me that was, okay, health should be universal and it shouldn't be something that, people are even concerned about. So that's one part of it. I'm trying to think. Another thing is we're really trying to be exemplary. I guess this one is also about integrity. We back in 2017, we decided as a company to go through the Green Business Certification program. So we're one of the few companies who have gone through that path and maintained this certification. So it's basically we're looking at all of our operations and we make sure that we're as sustainable as optimum as can be. And that's been actually amazing, both in terms of knowing that we do the right thing for the environment and we minimize the impact of our operations, but also from a financial standpoint, because we were wasteful in some areas and we're like, oh, we can actually do things differently. And I think this is the beauty in embracing sustainability, because it's a very holistic approach that has positive ripple effects. Like you do good it's karma. You do good somewhere and it brings more good elsewhere. But yeah, it's Solar Done Differently is about all of that. It's doing the right thing and just operating very true to our values.
Mm-hmm. We talked about education for the client, mentioned that a few times and how important that is to you. What do you feel like are some of the most common misconceptions with potential clients around solar right now?
I think that fortunately and unfortunately, I say something that's people are a little bit energy blind. And by that, I mean that people don't realize the cost of energy. We are so fortunate, me included, to have lived, my entire life, whether it was in France or here in the United States, in countries where you don't even really think about access to energy, right? Yeah. When the sun goes down, you turn on the lights and you don't even think about it. And the problem with that is that we take it for granted. We consume more and more and more. And when people call us and they want to look into solar, they don't realize what it's going to cost. How many solar panels will have to be installed to offset their consumption, because people have pretty big consumptions nowadays, right? Mm-hmm. So that's a big misconception. And that's really hard to beat, because fossil fuels have helped us as a species, as a society. They've helped us so much. We look at how we live. It's beautiful. It's so, but now we know the limits. So we have to go backwards almost. And we have to explain to people that there's a better way that is going to cost them some, not just financially, also in terms of being more responsible, more mindful around energy consumption. But this is needed for the future generations and just, even for their generation, because here in Goleta, I live in Goleta and our offices are in Goleta, but even Santa Barbara, northern Santa Barbara, we're at the very end of the transmission lines and we're more vulnerable than other places. So we're more vulnerable to, power disruption. And we've seen, lately with bigger weather events, we're pretty much doomed to, leave without power sometimes. And we're going to have to think about this and work really thoughtfully on becoming more resilient as a household, as a community. That's what I love with the products that we provide to our clients. And going back to, why we started this business, we want to have a positive impact. It's just so great that if you want to be more resilient, you have the ability to harness the sun and be able to transform it into electricity for your own use, and then store it with, the right batteries, not the cobalt ones, the ones that you can recycle, they are safe for your home and ethical, and setting up people for success and helping them get more resilient is a very great feeling.
I love it. Do you feel like being a local company is part of your identity, or do you see that as being, because I know you mentioned when you were doing your market research how there were the big companies in town and they had the presence, they all had the different names with sun in them. But how do you feel like being local affects you as a company or affects your client experience?
Yeah, I think it's major, more than ever. At the time, so about 10 years ago when we started, we were feeling like, the big companies, it's all about volume. They're not, and actually most of them, they've gone, out of business.
Mm.
So when we started, you really had two different types of competition. You had the big companies, poor customer service, very not responsive. So if everything goes down, they're really slow to respond. And you had kind of the very small contractors who couldn't really scale up. And again, kind of not very customer centric. Usually the journey of going solo was a little hectic. And so we really positioned ourselves in the middle. And we were like, okay, well, we're going to make it so simple for people so that it's so rewarding for them to go solar. They're going to be so happy about it. And they're going to tell their friends that this is the thing to do. And it's just, there's no, downside to it. Being a local is very important, especially as now most people are also installing a battery with their system. And although solar is a very reliable, there's no moving part in a solar panel. So it requires really low maintenance. A battery requires much. It's not that it requires so much maintenance, but there's more probability that at some point something's going to fail or you're going to need adjustment, and you're going to want your contractor to be responsive and come, very quickly to help put things back into motion. And the problem that we're seeing right now, we have more than ever, we have this really aggressive competition coming from out of town. And we have a lot, especially in from LA, providing like really low prices. And like they're back to 10 years ago, what they were doing with solar, we're seeing them happening again with battery storage. And the problem is that it's a totally different business model, and that those companies are not only going out of business, or they are just not responsive. They're out of town. They're not going to want to come back to service your system. So that's what we've been seeing. And that's very unfortunate because, again, it's bad press for the entire industry. It creates deceived customers. We're like, well, I did this. I thought this was the right thing to do. And now I'm left with, I made this investment and I'm left with a product that doesn't work. And they're calling us local installers like, hey, can you come and service my system? So it's really important to go with a local contractor who has their own crew, their own employees. They can really be in charge of quality control. They control the entire value chain. And it's, the same way you wouldn't go with an out-of-town electrician. You need a local electrician, a local plumber. It's the same thing with solar. You need your local solar contractor.
Absolutely. This has been such a great conversation. I'm sure anyone listening appreciates your approach to business, the insights that you have on business, especially when it comes to your values and your mission, and how you were very clear in forming that at the beginning, and it's guided you the whole way through. And I'm so proud that you've stuck with it. And even though that meant sacrificing business financially in the beginning, that you see it pay off in the long run. And I love seeing when you establish an identity and you attract the right people. And I'm sure that's obviously the case. You have the clients that are the right fit for Brighten and that match those values. So
Absolutely.
before we finish up, since you are from France and you've gone from French Riviera to American Riviera, and this town is full of Francophiles, myself included, I thought it'd be fun to do a little rapid fire. Here, straight from the trusted source, the best things in Santa Barbara that feel like France. You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Where do you think has the best croissant?
I'm going to make enemies, but I must say brioche.
Oh, I didn't see that coming. Okay.
I like their owners too. And they're real French people.
Yeah. Amazing. Okay. Favorite cafe?
Darts coffee.
Marina or Garden?
Marina.
Yeah. So good. Best winery or wine label?
That's hard for me. I do not drink wine. I feel so ashamed.
That's so interesting. This just turned into an expose. I didn't see that coming.
You're gonna laugh because I feel very French, although food wise and wine wise. So I would say I love Grassini. This is probably one of the only wineries, and also I love their place up in the valley. So I will go in a heartbeat. I have so many fond memories over there. So I will say Grassini. I love the owners too. They're really good people. I'll say that. But also in terms of food, if you ask me for food, I have great restaurants in town. Vegan. So
favorite restaurant. I should say, I keep saying best and favorite, but I should say like that is the most like feels like France to you.
And that's the thing, like I'm vegan now, so my
and we just lost Mesa Verde.
Yeah, we lost Mesa Verde, we lost Oliver's. My heart was aching. But I would say that there's lots of great options in town, and usually you can find stuff like vegan here and there. My two favorite restaurants at the moment are Bettina and Secret Bow. Obsessed with these places.
Yeah. You just redeemed yourself. Any boutique or shopping that fills the void for you?
I do shop still a lot in France.
Yeah.
But when you ask me about favorite shopping, I will say just the farmer's market, because this is, although vegan, I still love food, just from different sources. And going to the farmer's market every Saturday is like it's my joy. I go with my kids, my husband, and we just have a blast every time. It feels good.
There is nothing like a French farmer's market, but ours in Santa Barbara,
agreed.
It's a pretty good close match, I would say.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Any other local experiences that fill the void for you when you're feeling homesick?
Yeah, you mentioned that, and it's true that especially lately with everything happening in the world, I have been feeling more homesick than I would usually. But then I think that I just hit the beach, and it makes it, if not go away, it helps.
Feel better.
It's beautiful here. It's really beautiful, and you can always talk to awesome people. Wherever you go, there's always a friendly person to talk to. So it feels very homey in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. It was lovely to have you. I enjoyed this conversation so much. And if anyone would like to learn more about your services, the products that you offer, or just education around solar, what's the best way to reach out to you?
Yeah, thanks for asking. Go on our website, brightensolarco.com. Again, lots of education on there, lots of papers that we wrote, lots of blog posts. And if you want to reach out to us, phone is the best way, or there's a little contact form. If you want to ask questions, we're always happy to answer anything.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Marine.
Thank you, Jade.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Nailed It, business tips from industry leaders, brought to you by Clever Punch. Nailed It is all about connecting with people, building relationships, and helping each other. If you're interested in connecting with any of the guests on our episodes, You can find their contact info in our show notes or on the podcast page at cleverpunchco.com. You can also email info@cleverpunchco.com with any questions or feedback. I'm your host, Jade Flogerzi. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next time.